Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy, the Inferno, Canto 31, I think. Yes, Canto 31. Let's begin. It has been imaginative, creative, gloomy, but that's what we expect from it, right? Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. One and the self-same tongue first wounded me, so that it tinged the one cheek in the other, and then held out to me the medicine. Thus do I hear that once Achilles' spear, his and his father's, used to be the cause, first of a sad and then gracious boon. We turned our backs upon the wretched valley, upon the bank that girds it round about, going across it without any speech. There it is, less than night and less than day, so that my sight went little in advance, but I could hear the blare of a loud horn, so loud it would have made each thunder faint, which countered to it following its way, mine eyes directed wholly to one place. A loud horn. After the dolorous discomfiture, when Charlemagne the Holy Empire lost, so terribly Orlando sounded not. Short, while my head turned thitherward I held, when many lofty towers I seemed to see. Whereat I, Master, say, what town is this? And he to me, because thou peerest forth athwart the darkness, at too great a distance, it happens that thou errest in thy fancy. We shall thou see, if thou arrivest there, how much the sense deceives itself by distance. Therefore, a little faster, spur thee on. Then tenderly he took me by the hand, and said, before we farther have advanced, that the reality may seem to thee less strange, know that these are not towers, but giants, and they are in the well around the bank, from navel downward, one and all of them. Okay, so not towers, giants in a water well. And when the fog is vanishing away, little by little doth the sight refigure whate'er the mist that crowds the air conceals, so piercing through the dense and darksome air, more and more near approaching toward the verge, my air fled and fear came over me, because as on its circular parapets Monteriggion crowns itself with towers, e'en thus the margin which surrounds the well, with one half of their bodies turreted, the horrible giants whom Jove menaces, e'en now from out the heavens, when he thunders. And I of one already saw the face, shoulders and breast, and great part of the belly, and down alongside his sides both of the arms. Certainly nature, when she left the making of animals like these, did well indeed, by taking such executors from Mars. So you see, a little bit of paganism in here. Mars, nature referred to as a she. Mars is a Greek and Roman deity. And if of elephants and whales she doth not repent her, whosoever looketh subtly more just and more discreet will hold her for it. For where the argument of intellect is added unto evil will and power, no rampart can the people make against it. His face appeared to me as long and large as it roamed the pine cone of St. Peter's, and in proportion were the other bones, so that the margin, which an apron was down from the middle, showed so much of him above it, that to reach up to his hair 3 Frieslanders in vain had vaunted them, for I beheld 30 great palms of him, down from the place where the man his mantle buckles. Raphael me emek Isabialmi, began to clamor the ferocious mouth, to which were not befitting sweeter psalms, and unto him my guide. Soul idiotic, keep to thy horn, and vent thyself with that. When wrath or other passion touches thee, search round thy neck, and thou wilt find the belt which keeps it fastened, O bewildered soul, and see it, where it bars thy mighty breast. Then said to me, he doth himself accuse, this one is Nimrod. So Nimrod, by whose evil thought one language in the world is not still used. Here, let us leave him and not speak in vain, for even such to him is every language, as his to others, which to none is known. Therefore a longer journey did we make, turned to the left, and a crossbow shot oft. We found another far more fierce and large, and binding him, who might the master be, I cannot say, but he had pinioned close behind the right arm, and in front the other, with chains that held him so begirt about from the neck down, that on the part uncovered it wound itself as far as the 5th gyri. This proud one wished to make experiment of his own proper against the supreme Jove. Supreme Jove. My leader said, whence he has such a guerdon? If Phylides is his name, he showed great prowess, what time the giants terrified the gods. The arms he wielded never more he moves, and I to him, if possible, I should wish. If you notice here, what time the giants terrified the gods, so you have this dance between him talking about popes, right, being punished in hell, but you also have this sort of hinting at paganism. I don't know, it's kind of weird, because there's like all kinds of ghastly figures. And I to him, if possible, I should wish that of the measureless Briareus these eyes of mine might have experience. Whence he replied, thou shalt behold Antaeus, close by here, who can speak and is unbound, who at the bottom of all crime shall place us. So someone just like as a giant tethered into a well. It's very strange, just giants. So giants in hell. So many creatures. Much farther yon is he whom thou wouldst see, and he is bound and fashioned like to this one, save that he seems in aspect more ferocious. There never was an earthquake of such might that it could shake a tower so violently as if Philip suddenly shook himself. Then was I more afraid of death than ever, for nothing more was needful than the fear. If I had not beheld the manacles, then we proceeded farther in advance. So the manacles, it's like when you're chained right around your wrists and such. So this giant, Ephialtes, he shook himself and an earthquake happens. So he's a chained giant being punished, and he moves, and then everything on the ground moves in hell. Then we proceeded farther in advance, and to Antaeus came, who, full 5 ells without the head, forth issued from the cavern. O thou, who in the valley fortunate, which Scipio in their air of glory made, when Hannibal turned back with all his hosts. Once broughtest 1,000 lions for thy prey. And who hadst thou been at the mighty war among thy brothers? Some, it seems, still think the sons of earth the victory would have gained. Place us below, nor be disdainful of it. There where the cold doth lock Cocytus up. Make us not go to Titus, nor Typhoeus. This one can give of that which here is longed for. Therefore stoop down, and do not curl thy lip. Still in the world can he restore thy fame, because he lives, and still expects long life. If to itself grace call him not untimely. Okay. Wow. So said the master, in haste the other, his hands extended and took up my guide, hands whose great pressure Heracles once felt. So, they're being picked up by a giant. Pretty scary. Big giant in hell. Virgilius, when he felt himself embraced, said unto me, Draw nigh, that I may take thee. Then of himself and me one bundle made, as seems the Carisenda to behold beneath the leaning side, when goes the cloud above it, so that opposite it hangs. Such did Antaeus seem to me, who stood watching to see him stoop. And then it was I could have wished to go some other way. So yeah, he's like, I wish I could have been carried another way. I'm gonna be carried by a giant in his hands. But lightly, in the abyss which swallows up Judas with Lucifer, he put us down, nor thus bowed downward made he their delay, but as a mast does in a ship uprose. So then he gently puts him down, and then on his way. Whew, I'd be scared to be carried by a giant. I mean, he's seen chain giants shaking, right? They're just like, Argh! And then that would terrify you. You realize how small you are. And then you get picked up by a giant, carried around. You're vulnerable. But just to think about being that size, but then you're chained. What kind of punishment that is, right? Because you would think you're bigger, the mightiness of you, you know, being unleashed. But then when you're in hell, your strength is not gonna avail you. It's a really interesting way to look at that symbolically. The chained giant in hell. Right? Being carried around by a giant. The ground shaking because of that. It's totally freaky. Earthquakes are scary enough. But then there was one guy who was chained who had that annoying horn. And it was so loud when it would blast. So we have sounds that are hurtful in hell, shaking ground, and different sized beings. Remember, we saw people in previous sections who were entangled in pits of snake. There was there's flying winged creatures who feast on you. There is people getting whipped, right? It's fascinating, you know. There's just old, they're going up, they're up and they're going down. So the story starts when they're up and they're going deeper and deeper. So there's these rings. And each Volga that they go through, it's just like, wow. There's the circles, the Volgas. Intense. And what's unique about this story that no one else has done similar is just taking the time. Think about that. Instead of just showing up at the gates, because cartoons have made you not fear hell, like Enchanted. I like that, but they started getting a little bit weird, and that always happens with shows. They start off really strong, and then they kind of jump the shark, but they kind of like have this demon Lucy, and they just kind of made hell not that scary. I mean, it's not supposed to be a cartoon, but when you compare that to this work of Dante, there's just different types of suffering. And if you sit and analyze it, you're like, because today we are very comfortable with sin, and we don't have necessarily fear, right? You have a lot of haughty atheists and rampant feminists and evil men who don't really think they'll be held accountable for their sin, and they trivialize sin, especially the red pillars when it comes to hedonism, right? So this book allows the mind to like think about all the things that can make your life terrible. I've often mentioned this with the Jezebel types. They think that their beauty is some type of power that's gonna, like, if you think about the devil, your beauty is not gonna tempt the devil. Really think about that. It's like some women think their beauty will control God and will control the devil and will control demons. It's a very strange illusion that women have, thinking that their beauty is, it's a magical power upon earthly men, because a lot of earthly men are ruled by their one-eyed friend, right? They're a slave to their own hormones, and so it's easy to manipulate those men, right? That's why the story of Joseph to me is so powerful in the Quran, because he resisted. His fear of Allah was greater than his one-eyed friend's desires. We don't have very many men like that anymore, and that's been socially engineered, which is a whole another fascinating topic, because it's extracted the worst of men. So when you see the contrasts of different levels of suffering in Dante's work, with a religious-minded person, you're like, excuse me, you're like, wow, this is something. And even then, hell is beyond what we can comprehend. You can't escape your nightmare. You can't decide what kind of dreams you're gonna have. You can't even decide what type of dreams you have in your own head. You are at the mercy of your own nightmares. And yet, some people are so arrogant, haughty, and boastful and rebellious that they think when they die that their tongue is like gonna find some way to slither them out of the predicament they got them in, and not hold them accountable for the corruption and nastiness they did on earth. It's quite telling. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive.